Okay, so this is a slideshow about artistic composition. Um, it is a little lengthy, so if you want to stop anywhere and go back, no need to feel like you have to go through the whole thing in one sitting. But this is a really important first step in your artistic journey through middle school. So we're going to talk about what makes up artistic composition. The definition is the arrangement of the elements and principles of art. So when you're creating art, you want to create a visually interesting piece. Understanding how these elements and principles go together is going to help you do that. So, as an artist, you're always trying to have something that draws people in, draws in the viewer, whether that has to do with, purely the subject matter, or if it's like an abstract, it has to do something to you, the way things are arranged, the way shapes and forms and colors are arranged. That's going to create visual interest. So there are ways to put these things together, these elements and principles. And the first one we're going to talk about are all of these elements. There's line, there's texture, shape, form, color, space, and value. And they are used together with the principles that we are going to see in a little while. And after we go through all of these things, what I hope you get out of it is there are certain things about a work of art that is going to make it more successful than other works of art. And in math, for example, there's only one correct answer. In art, there are many correct answers. My painting of a still life of, let's say, fruit or something is going to look different than yours. And it should, because you're bringing to your artwork your perspective and your style. So art can be answered in many different ways. And I want you to keep that in mind as you're going through and creating your artwork. So these are the elements: line, texture, shape, form, color, space, and value. We're going to look at examples of those, and then we're going to see how they work together with the principles. So line is the path of a moving point, okay? So it starts somewhere and then it ends up somewhere else. It can be straight, it can be curved, it can be thick or thin. And if you look at all these little examples, it'll show you some ways that line can be used to create some kind of visual. And if you look at, for instance, this little one here, it looks like the way the lines have been put down here is creating a little form. Looks like the end of a pen or something, kind of a cone shape. And if you look at this one, the way this is arranged, it kind of looks like it might be fabric. And you can see that some of these look like optical illusions. And all this is created just by the way the line has been used. This one kind of looks like, this one kind of looks like this one right here. Something's kind of bulging out. So the way you use line can create a lot of different illusions on your page or your paper or your canvas or whatever you're doing. This is another one. It kind of looks like it has a three-dimensional quality. I can see the depth of that just the way the line has been put down on the paper. So line can lead your eye through the image. Line can be the basis of a painting. Like if you're going to sketch out something, you have to know a little bit about how to draw, and line is very important in that. The next one is texture. So texture can be seen and then it can also be felt. So it's an important element in art, in photography. It adds a lot of visual interest. The big black square, or the darkest one over there, is kind of looks like screen or something like a netting, and it has a lot of interesting texture to it. And the other ones as well, you can see the kind of rough and smooth areas of things. And artists have different ways of achieving the illusion of texture. You can actually create texture by putting a piece of paper down on like the sidewalk and rubbing it, and you can see the texture that way. We have shape. So shape refers to two-dimensional objects, and they can be organic, like the ones on the right hand side, or they can be angular, squares and star shapes use straight lines, whereas the organic ones use flowing and curved lines. So you think about shape as just having two dimensions, and that would be the height and the width. So this is the width here, and this is the height. Okay, and they're flat. All right, usually do not have any form. You can't see that. Oh, that looks like an apple, because I can see that it has this three-dimensional quality to it. Shape is just two-dimensional. Okay, so that is shape. Now, form is like shape, but it is three-dimensional. So if you look at that red circle, or we would call that a sphere, it is an illusion of three-dimensional shape, because it has the height, it has the width, but it also has depth. That is, it looks like it's going back into space, or I can see that this is an object that isn't flat. And if you look at the left-hand top image, you can see like a cone, and you can see the way the artist has used, looks like pencil here, in a way to make it look like it's actually a cone shape and not just a triangle. So there are ways that I can, you will learn how to do this, and it uses one of the other elements called value to create this. So if you look at that red sphere, you can see that there's a point where it has a highlight on it, and then you can see it gets lighter as it goes towards the bottom of this sphere. It gets very dark, and you can see a shadow, and it gradually gets lighter and lighter till it's like purely, as light as it can be. So that is form. If you look at the still life at the upper right-hand corner, you can see there's a lot of color in there, but you can also see that certain colors have been used to create this idea, this illusion of form. And you can see the lighter colors are where the light is hitting the objects, and the darker colors are where the shadows are. The next element is color. So color is really fun to use, and in art I love to use color, but you have to think about using color intelligently. What am I trying to do with this color? Am I trying to do a landscape where all the colors should look realistic, or am I just doing a design where I just want to make it exciting? So there's a lot of things to consider when you're using color, and we will be looking at the color wheel and the relationships between colors. If you look at the wheel that's at the upper left-hand corner here, that's all of the colors. That's the color wheel. And if you look at the bottom, there's another circle type wheel. And it's all variations of blue. So that's called monochromatic color. And then if you look at the other circle where it looks like there's popsicles, that is using complementary color to create all this visual interest. So there's a lot to know about color, and we will be going through that, hopefully a little later this year. Another element is space. So these illustrations are showing different kinds of ways to show this illusion of space. If you look at the chair against this wall, you can see that the chair is sitting in space, sitting on the floor, kind of up against a wall a little bit. And if you're thinking about whether this is positive or negative space, I would say that the chair is the positive space and the wall and the floor are regarded as the negative space. Think about space when, if you're going to paint, for example, a landscape, and you are standing in front of a field and there's some flowers that are close to you, and then you can look out and maybe there's some trees in the distance, and then some way off in the distance is like where some real far off trees are, and then the sky. If you were to draw those objects, the things that are closest to you are going to be at the bottom of the page, and they're going to be big. And the things that are going farther away from you, like in the middle ground, they're going to get a little smaller. And then when you get all the way back to the end, like at the horizon line, it's going to be really small. Okay? So you can use what you know about the elements to place objects on your page to create this illusion of space. So we'll be talking a little bit about that as well. Okay, so value is another element. We were talking about this a minute ago when I was showing you form. Because if you want to create the illusion of form, you have to know something about value. Value refers to the gradual change from light to dark. So you can create the illusion of 3 dimensions if you know how to apply your materials, whether it's pencil or charcoal or paint or whatever it is, to show this gradual change. So if you look at the pears, you can see there's a light coming in from the upper right-hand side. So it's very light there. And then it gets dark as the light, goes away from it. But it doesn't like make a sharp change from light to dark. It's a gradual change. So you can see very light, kind of like a mid-tone, getting darker, a little bit darker yet, and very dark at the bottom here. Okay? So that's value. And this is a value scale going from light to dark. And there's some steps in between. So that's how artists make things look 3-dimensional. That's value. And here's some different examples of value. It's a little graphic here. Colored pencil, very dark, getting a little lighter, lighter, lighter. And that is the way you make things look like they are round or they have this dimension. Okay? So, that, if you want to stop and come back and do the principles later, that's fine. Be a good stopping point right here. Okay, so as I said before, the elements work with the principles. So here's the principles: pattern, balance, emphasis, variety, rhythm, harmony, and contrast. So here's the first one, pattern. I love pattern. I love pattern and color. it's a very simple definition. Pattern is created when shapes repeat. So if you take a look at this here, 16 circles, this is a repeating pattern. And a lot of time pattern will have line in it, color and texture. All right? So something to think about though is if you just were to have 16 circles there, I'm talking about this little image right here, and they were all the same color. See, they're all just 16 yellow circles. It would not be anywhere near as interesting as what's going on here. Because in this composition, you have the circles, but then there's a lot of lines going through the circles. And the circles all have squares around them. And there's all kinds of color. And it's light color, and it's dark color, and it's contrasting color. There's warm colors, and there's cool colors. And it makes a very interesting design. So think about that when you're creating a composition with pattern. Same with these kind of like circles and flowers here. This is pattern, but it's kind of random, all right? So you have different size circles, different shapes, different colors, all circles, all similar, but varying the size of these things, the colors, and the placement on the page is what's creating a lot of visual interest. Okay? So think about that when you are using pattern in your composition. The next principle is balance. So balance can be symmetrical or asymmetrical. So symmetrical means what is on the one side is the same on the other side. So if you look at this painting of this sneakers, you can see it has this balance because it has the same kind of shape on both sides. So I feel that there is a visual weight and it feels like finished. There's nothing falling off the page, nothing feels missing, and that is symmetrical balance. Same with the tree and the moon, the trees and the moon, very well balanced, and it creates a lot of visual interest. Then you have that, it looks like a nautical kind of, symbol. It's circular, and everything is kind of emanating out from the center, and that's referred to as radial balance, like the spokes on a bicycle wheel, balanced, but all, coming out from the center. And on the other side, on the right-hand side, we have asymmetrical balance. And this is where the composition feels balanced, but not by the same objects on both sides. So if you look at the black and white image of the girl, it's kind of like gradation, kind of gray and white, you can see that she is on the one side, and then you have these kind of floating leaves on the other side. And if the leaves weren't there, or the girl wasn't there, it would kind of feel like an empty space. It wouldn't feel balanced. It would feel kind of heavy on the one side, or, just like something's missing. So this is balanced. It's not balanced by something exactly the same, but you do feel that that visual weight is there. Same with the painting that's a famous painting, Whistler's Mother, lady in the black dress, and she is balanced by that heavy curtain that's hanging there. And then the same kind of an idea with those flowers, the flowers that are dipping down to the left-hand side is giving it a good visual weight, kind of like balancing it, but not exactly the same. So that's asymmetrical balance. And you can also see that the other elements in here, you can see line and you can see color, even some pattern in here. So a lot of the elements are used, together. So there's, the way these things work together is many times more than one element and more than one principle at work at any time in a composition. The next principle is emphasis. So you can see that I think something is missing here because we just talked about balance, and this slide does not seem balanced at all. There's a big white area here that needs something. But anyway, I have these two images here, and we're going to talk about emphasis in them. This is a famous painting. This is I think this is like Spanish Revolution, and Goya is the painter, and this example shows emphasis on the man who has his arms up and the guns are pointed at him, and you can see that he is the focal point because of this light that is on him. Other areas are darker, but the light is centered right on him, his white shirt, and it just seems to be illuminated by something. I'm not sure what, but I think the artist has intentionally done that so that we can see he is the main focus of this painting. Also, the guns are creating this line that's pointing at him as well. So that's one way an artist would use emphasis. And below that, the image of the umbrellas, you can obviously see that the emphasis is created by that red umbrella among all of the gray ones. So these are a couple of ways to create emphasis. So if you look at these, especially the umbrella one, what other principle would you say is there? Just a little thought for you. What other principle would you say is in this one? Okay, our next principle is contrast, and contrast is another very important principle. You know, it works together with all the different elements. You know, you can see color, you can see line, you can see texture, but the contrast is created with these strong opposites, like dark and light, large and small, warm against cool colors. So all of these things put next to each other creates a lot of visual interest. Variety is the next principle, and variety, as we talked about, pattern that you know uses the placement and the size and the shape and the color. Variety is similar to that, but it doesn't have to be a pattern. Okay, so variety can be anything. You can have many, you know, shapes and many colors, and things are going in different directions, and this can create visual interest. You know, sometimes it doesn't work out because it's just too many things that don't, you know, go together enough to make it interesting. You know, sometimes variety is something you got to just kind of think about. Am I going too far with this? But in something like this, you can see that it works very well. There's kind of a flow here because I can see some colors. There's similar colors here, 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 and here. As long as your eye is still kind of going around, it works, all right? It can work very well. That is variety. Rhythm. Rhythm, it refers to like the movement or visual flow. And here's 3 examples with kind of different rhythms. This is Van Gogh's Starry Night, and you can see it's kind of a smooth and flowing rhythm. You know, it looks like waves in the sky, and you can see the circular brush strokes creating that rhythm. Colors are similar in this. And then if you look at this painting right here by an artist called Mondrian, he has more of this very regimented, orderly rhythm of things, and it kind of feels like a streets and cars that are moving and stop signs and you know, maybe red lights, green lights going on and off. But I do feel that there is a visual flow to it, but different than the Starry Night. And there's another kind of rhythm going on in that painting in the upper right hand corner. It just feels like all of these blue lines smaller and larger, and they're creating this kind of ebb and flow up and down, and I definitely feel a rhythm to that, and that can create good visual interest. Harmony. So this is the last one in the slideshow. So harmony is something where you're thinking about similar objects. In this painting, it's all musical instruments, and that can create harmony. Or it could be all the same color, like if it's like all tones of blue can create harmony. As opposed to this painting being like if it was a guitar and then you had like an apple and a hairbrush or something, it would not be as harmonious as the similar shapes and the similar objects that are in there. So you can have harmony in a couple different ways, but having similar objects is one way. Okay, so that was very long. It's kind of a lengthy presentation, but it's good to kind of get these things in your head, because as you're putting your artwork together, you can refer back to them when you're trying to achieve what we would say is a good, effective, visually interesting composition. If you have a composition that's not as successful, I would never call anybody's artwork bad. I'm just using that term, just for convenience sake. But we could say successful or unsuccessful. You could say good or bad. But when you're thinking about something that is not a successful piece of artwork, or just for sake of the assignment, bad, it's missing something. It's not balanced. Maybe it feels off balance. Maybe if it's a pattern, it's just like you took a picture of a brick wall. Okay, that's a pattern because I see bricks, but it's not visually interesting. So I would say that's kind of an unsuccessful example, of an artistic composition. So you're trying to think of things that are going to make it more interesting.